Welcome to the planning meeting. Who's that then?
It's Matthew.
Oh, good afternoon, Matthew.
Hi.
And I welcome members and officers to the meeting of the Development Control Committee, which due to the government's advice is to practice social distancing and be held virtually. The meeting has been recorded and will be available by the council's website to be viewed as soon as practical for the meeting. Everyone participating in this meeting will be accessing this meeting from remote locations. Please could everyone ensure that mobile phones are switched off or to silent mode. Members will receive electronic copy of the agenda. I will ask officers to present a summary of the key points. For the record, the agenda can be viewed on the council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those may switch off their cameras at this point. But I would ask that, with the exception of myself as chairperson, at all other times you keep your cameras and microphones switched off, as this will help to minimize any background noise and interference and to ensure that connection remains as stable as possible. If any members and officers wish to raise a point or a question, they should press the hands up icon on the screen at the top right-hand side of the Microsoft Teams window, and I will come to an order. I will receive the request. Please lower your hand once you have finished speaking. The chat button has been disabled for this meeting. Do not use your microphones until I invite you to do so. Officers from the Democratic Services will be spoken in the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and when necessary, will mute those not being used. I would ask the officers to introduce themselves when invited to speak during the course of the meeting. They too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off. Now I proceed to the agenda of the business. Number 1, apologies, please. Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Mark Alvin, Senior Democratic Services Officer Committees. Apologies from Councillor Collins, Councillor Kern, Councillor Radcliffe and Councillor Young.
Thank you very much. Any declarations?
Sorry, Chair, to add, and Councillor Sturman.
Right, thank you, Rod. Are there any declarations of interest, please, from officers and members? Anyone? Thank you. Can I move over the minutes, please, of our last meeting?
I'll formally move, Chair.
Seconder, please.
Seconder.
All in favour?
One hand up from Councillor Clark, Chair.
Sorry?
We got a hand up from Councillor Clark.
Councillor Clark, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to mention that I've got an appointment at 4 o'clock, so I will have to leave about 3:45, but hopefully it'll be finished by then.
You'll be on your own, Councillor Clark.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you very much. Right. What have I got now? Number 6, development control guidelines. Right. On to item 7 now. Open Street for Jen. And the office taking this is Zandra. When you're ready, please, Zandra.
We got speakers, Chair.
Just to come in before.
You're going to take the speakers first?
Take the speakers first, please, Chair.
Right,
yes.
thank you.
It's,
Right.
I think they're
Mrs.
here.
Payne first, is it?
Yes, Beth Payne, I think, first, Chair.
Thank you. When you're ready, Mrs. Payne, please.
Sorry, Chair, did we do the last set of minutes?
No. Me take the speaker, we'll come back to that then. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Beth Payne. I'm the owner of 104 Knowlton Street, Bridgend. This is the adjoining terrace property to number 106 for which the application for planning is taking place. My property next door to 106 is a residential house, and I'm very concerned about issues that will affect the occupants. It could be affected by loss of privacy, although I assume that the garden is no longer to be used as a smoking area, as it's no longer mentioned in the amended application. Is this correct? My main concern is the potential disturbance from excessive noise in a licensed premises. I noted the sound test has been carried out on an estimated 35 people being present at one time. there could be potentially double this number present, as I very much doubt numbers will be limited to 35. I note that although the licence time has been reduced from midnight to 11 p.m, this means that there will still be potentially people leaving up until 11:30 at night, possibly causing noise and antisocial behaviour outside my property. Although it is proposed to only have low background music there, at a later date, it's quite possible that louder music could be used, or even televisions, if so requested by customers, giving rise to concern about more disturbance to residents of 104. Although I appreciate that the upstairs lounge area is not now only to be used as a storeroom, the WC is to be located on the first floor, so there will be considerable traffic up and down, and even if this is carpeted, will cause a noise nuisance to my property. Also, if staff need to access stock from the upstairs storeroom, this could potentially cause disturbance to residents asleep in the adjoining bedroom at my property. I note that the planners have referred that an advantage of having this application granted is that it would be better than having the property empty. However, permission granted for a licensed premises here is likely to result in my property being empty, as it will be unrentable and unsaleable. To conclude, I put it to the committee, would you like to live adjoining a licensed premises? I certainly wouldn't. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Payne. Could we have the panel, please?
Pardon?
Mr. Pittman.
All right.
Hello there.
When you're ready, Mr. Pittman, please.
Hello, thank you for having me here today. I'm a businessman who wants to support the revitalisation of Bridgend Town Centre. I'm not looking to put anything that would cause disturbance or would have people outside, creating a loud environment and making it unwelcoming for anyone. As you've seen, the property's been empty for a long time, and that is really the gateway for Bridgend. What I'm trying to do is attract people from Awenny Road and from Newbridge Fields down to have a nice drink before they maybe go into town now and have something to eat, or, you know, they carry on with the evening elsewhere. I'm trying to create jobs in the area. As you know, the unemployment in Bridgend is quite substantial. We've jumped through, I think, most things. We've had the case officer's report there with the planning issues, and like I say, we had the noise consultant there and everything else. I find it quite disappointing with some of the comments made there with regarding to having more people there and everything else. What we've set out in the plan is what we're trying to do, to be respectful of next door. There's a lot of dwellings and stuff in Bridgend who have pubs and restaurants next door to them, and this has never been an issue in the past. So I find that quite disappointing. All we're trying to do is create a place in Bridgend, instead of another empty building or another building going to waste, somewhere where it can kind of be a hub for people to come and enjoy, but go on with their night then later on. The councillors note as well, we've undertaken the noise assessment and that's come back. We only want light background music there. We don't plan to have anything other than that there. It just seems like it's a waste of a building, and it's a massive opportunity to bring something new, vibrant and energetic to the area. The decline of the town centre has been more and more through the years, and I just feel, as a businessman, as a Bridgend boy and as a local, there is a huge opportunity here to create something that people can be proud of in the area. You've got kebab shops and other pubs on that road, and if anyone was going to cause a problem, you know that would have been addressed by now. We're just looking to add something to the area and make it more inviting for people and get Bridgend back to where it should be, and that is my goal. I already have Zest, which is a nice cafe on Awenny Road, and we've had no problems there. and I've also brought ahead of the game to Bridgend as well. So
Right, thanks. I'm going to stop you now, Mr. Pittman. You've run over time. Thank you. Thanks very much. Right. Go back to item 3. Can I move in a second, please, for the minutes on the 3rd of March 2022?
Chair, I think those have been moved and seconded already, actually.
Oh, well, then I've said it again. Thank you very much. Right.
Thanks. So I think it's Alexander to come in now with the report.
Can I have a mover, please, and a second, please, for the recommendation?
Move.
Second.
I'll second it, Chair, but I just thought, Chair, that Rod said that Alexander was going to speak first.
Yeah.
But I would hold that. I'll second the proposal.
Thank you very much. Xander, when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, members. For the purposes of the tape, I'm Alexander Richard, Senior Planning Officer. This application proposes the change of use of the currently vacant hairdresser salon at 106 Norton Street to a cafe bar operating within an A3 use class. The bar is proposed to operate between the hours of 4 p.m. and 11 p.m. Monday to Saturday, and between midday and 8 p.m. on Sundays and bank holidays, with a maximum capacity of 35 people. The bar will operate at ground floor only, with customers only being permitted to access the first floor for use of the customer toilets. A copy of the proposed floor plans are reproduced on page 13 of the agenda packs. The item is being presented for members to consider the objections raised from the owner of the neighbouring property and at the request of the local ward members. In principle, the use is considered to be acceptable given the context of the application site within Bridgend Town Centre. It is not considered to over-intensify or result in a cluster of A3 units at this end of Norton Street, particularly given that there is no takeaway element proposed. And, as there are a number of other use classes operating within the immediate vicinity of the site, the occupation of the premises as a cafe bar is considered to add to the level of interest and activity at street level in accordance with Policy SB2 of the Local Development Plan. As no external alterations are proposed, the main consideration in the determination of the acceptability of this scheme is the impact of the development on neighbour amenity, with particular regard to noise, given that the adjoining property, known as number 104 Norton Street, is currently residential. In support of the application, the applicant has submitted a noise impact assessment written by Hunter Acoustics. The scope and methodology of the noise impact assessment was originally agreed with Shade Regulatory Services on the basis that a sound insulation test could be carried out between the properties known as 106 Norton Street and 104 Norton Street. However, as access to number 104 Norton Street was not granted, a revised scope and methodology was agreed, covering an acoustic design appraisal of the separating wall. This was carried out by assessing the existing structure's sound insulation performance and has determined the likely noise levels in the adjacent dwelling. A civil engineer has carried out a survey of the property to ascertain the separating wall construction, which is confirmed as being 580mm masonry stone wall plastered on both sides. The sound insulation performance of the wall shows a predicted overall performance of 64 decibels. The cafe bar operating until 11 p.m. and with a maximum capacity of 35 people is proposed to have an overall predicted level of 23 decibels, which is below the guidance values quoted in British Standard. Therefore, the development is unlikely to cause a detrimental impact on the occupiers of the adjoining property and is considered to be acceptable in this regard by Shade Regulatory Services. To ensure the amenity of neighbouring occupiers is protected in perpetuity, a condition is recommended to be imposed requiring the submission of a noise assessment to be undertaken, requiring the operator of the business to employ an approved consultant to assess the level of noise emissions generated by their cafe bar from the complainant's property. If the noise assessment demonstrates that the emissions exceed the noise limits set out in the noise impact assessment, which is 64 decibels, the operator shall propose a scheme to mitigate the breach and prevent its future recurrence. Given the inclusion of this recommended condition, The development is on balance considered to be acceptable in this regard, and it is considered that the objections raised by the owner have been addressed. The proposed change of use is acceptable in terms of its impact on highway and pedestrian safety, as it is located within a sustainable location and results in a nil detriment in highway safety terms, and the scheme is therefore recommended for approval. I'd also just like to clarify that the smoking area, which was originally proposed to the rear of the property, has now been omitted from the scheme, so there'll be no outdoor area as part of this proposal. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Sandra. All right, I got one hand up. Is it yours, Richard, or you took it down?
It's mine, Chair. You could guess that.
Was you up before Councillor Clark?
I think so. I put my hand
Are
up
you
before
coming
Alexander.
in? Councillor
Yes, he
please.
was.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alexander, for the information. In asking for this to come to committee, I was very concerned, obviously, about the objections raised by the neighbour, and it is clear that due diligence has taken place, and that you have proven on paper the objections aren't enough to reject this application. I'm very, it's always a balancing act with a planning application, balancing the needs of neighbours, the community, and the application itself. And I'm happy to accept the officer's recommendations, because who wouldn't? But there are a couple of points I'd like to raise and ask advice on. First of all, coming to the last item you mentioned about smoking area, and the garden not being used as a smoking area. Clearly, what will happen is that everybody will come outside the property to the front step onto the pavement and smoke there, and we'll end up with fag butts all over the pavement. So whilst we can say it won't happen, it will. Smokers will go outside and have a cigarette. So I would like to add a condition, if possible, that suitable receptacles are placed for smoking debris, and that the owner of the property or the operator is responsible for their maintenance and cleansing in perpetuity of the application. I'm not sure if that's possible, but I'm sure that an arrangement or whatever can be undertaken. Obviously, if the noise becomes an issue, then there is a remedy in place. But my big concern, as we've seen with many applications in the past, is that we'll grant this now with the conditions, and in a few months' time or a year's time, there'll be another application to restrict those conditions or change them. And I know that this is something which grates on the members, because it seems that we can put a condition in and then it's irrelevant because it can be changed. So I'd just like some advice as to these conditions. Are they set in stone? Because what's the point of having them if then in 6 months' time they come and change them? So I'm happy with everything that's said, but just ask if you could just answer those couple of questions for me, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Sandra, please.
No problem. I'll start with the conditions. I think I know concerns were raised about the over-intensification of a A3 use with particular reference to takeaways. So we've imposed one of the conditions will restrict the use of the premises to only be used as a cafe wine bar. So we would stop it from becoming used as a takeaway in the future. So I think that's one of the conditions which helps to overcome that over-intensification query. In terms of the receptacles on the front pavement for the cigarettes, I don't know if we could impose a condition because it wouldn't be within the application site. And whilst I acknowledge that people, if they weren't using the rear smoking area, they may go to the front of the property. We've done all we can in terms of restricting the use of the back, and it's very difficult to condition behaviour of patrons using the premises. I don't know if Jonathan wants to come in and
Alexander, Jonathan,
add to
please.
the.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, can I just, Jonathan, can I just come in for a point of order here, Chair? That what Councillor Boyce just put has not been seconded, mind, Chair. He's
we know
moved
that,
it, but it's not been seconded, so I don't know why we're discussing it. It hasn't been seconded. If somebody seconds it, then discuss it.
I don't know if I felt the question it was, wasn't it?
I think Chair, just to say on this point, Councillor Boyce has asked a question as to what's possible and what's not possible. So I don't think, I mean, Jonathan will obviously advise now, but I mean, it could be if such a condition is not legitimate in any event. I mean, there'd be no point in moving or seconding it, Chair. So I think it's a request for information at the moment.
All right, Richard.
Thank you, Rod, for the clarification.
Thank you very much. Right, when you're ready, Jonathan, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. For the purposes of the recording, my name is Jonathan Parsons, the Group Manager for Planning and Development Services. I think the member does raise a point. I take that fully on board. I think it may be possible that we could look at maybe a condition that looks at a cigarette. I don't know if there's a technical term for it, but a dispensing box that could be fastened to the wall of the property. Though it's not, it would be on the pavement side, but it would still be part of the property. You do see these occasionally in some buildings. So that may be a possibility, but of course any sort of antisocial behaviour or any other activities that occurs on outside the property on the pavement, that would be something that planning couldn't necessarily control, and that would be controlled under other legislation. So I'm not sure, as Andrew, would that be something that we could entertain?
Yeah, I'd be happy to impose a condition if that was what was required.
Thank you, Jonathan. Councillor Bowsey, would that satisfy your question, please?
Yeah, I was going to suggest maybe a wall-mounted cigarette bin or something. And if it can't be, I mean, we've got the applicant on the call, and it could be something that they could agree to quite easily. It's really just to make sure that the public purse and that isn't put upon to clear up the mess. If there's one there, people might use it. And the other part of the question was about the conditions. How sound are they in terms of being overturned later, in terms of coming back in 6 months and applying for takeaway consent or whatever, because it's happened so often before.
We better bring Xander, you'd like to come back in, or we've been Rodney back in?
I'll have a shot at that one. Yeah, effectively, Councillor, we can't stop people effectively applying for a relaxation of conditions in the future. We've got an application process for that. It's a Section 73 application to relax or remove conditions, but it doesn't mean that they can just do it. So it is a new application. So we would look at it in the round, fully consider, fully consult, fully notify, so everyone knows what's happening and what's being relaxed or whatever, or changed. In the instance of changing it to a takeaway, it will need a new planning application because we've removed that permitted change of use from this form of A3 food and drink unit to another form of A3 food and drink unit. So that would automatically have to be another application. We can't stop people from applying for it, but at least it'll be an application where we can consider. On the smoking issue, I've just had a look at the street view outside the unit, and actually there is a bin there at the minute with a smoking, assume that's a smoking element at the top of the bin there at the minute. So I can see a point, Councillor, you could have one fitted on the door, but it's literally, if it was down the street, they wouldn't use it. But as it's directly outside the unit, I assume it's still there within the control of the council waste services team, and then I'm guessing that would cater for any smokers stepping outside the bar to do their smoking. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rod. Councillor Bosey, are you happy with that?
You know me, not always happy, but no. Just looking at the picture of the application and through local knowledge, it's been usual that the entrance is actually on the top of the steps, and that area on the steps and to the side is where I would imagine people would congregate to smoke, rather than on the street directly in front of it in the corner. If that door is where you've got the window and the doorway, that is, to me, a more logical place where people would congregate and smoke, not on the street corner itself. Hence why I was asking for something on the side of the property, roughly where the door is, or somewhere along there, about there. Yes, just to assist in giving people a hint to put their cigarette butts in a receptacle. But apart from that, I'm happy with the answers, and like to move progress as much as anyone else wants to move progress. Thank you.
Councillor Clark, please.
I put my hand down now, Chair, because I was concerned about patrons spilling out onto that like patio area as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got no more questions. Are you all in favour of the recommendation?
Yes.
I'll formally move the recommendation, Chair, but not what Councillor Vosey's just said, because that's not in it. Rod?
Yeah, that's what. Sorry, Chair, just come back in. I don't think I've introduced myself, Chair. I've been talking. So I'm Roderick Jones, Legal Officer, Advising Committee. Yeah, I think if to put an extra condition in, we would need a motion, presumably from Councillor Vosey as an amendment to the recommendation, and then if members are happy to second that, of course, it can be taken as part of a recommendation then forward.
Okay. We've got to move on. We will need a second now, please. Anybody get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nora. Thanks very much. All in favour?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, Rod?
No,
Hello?
Yes.
Sorry, was there dissent there, Chair?
there is from me.
Richard, please.
Well, I'm just objecting to the motion, that's all, Chair.
Oh, you're voting against, Councillor?
Yes.
Right. I think Chair, the other member is happy.
Are you all in favour?
Apart from
Yes.
Councillor Granville.
Yes.
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 Anyone else, please?
Yep. So if members know what they're approving now, it's the recommendation, but with the additional condition as moved by Councillor Voisey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
Right.
Right. So that's fine, Chair. So it's just one against, and that's
Go forward. Thank you very much. Right. Item 8 now. Land north of Eddystone Hall, Eddystone Hill, Bridgend. Everyone, when you're ready, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So my name is Ewan Sexton, Senior Planning Officer. Good afternoon, everyone. As you will have read in the report for this application, Councillor Lynn Walters had requested that a committee site visit take place. We've taken advice from the Chief Legal Officer, and there will be no change to the current position regarding committee site visits in the short term. So given this, I prepared a short presentation with a number of photographs of the site and the surrounding area, and hopefully this will suffice instead.
Okay.
So the application is for a stable, large enough for 12 horses to be kept there, alongside works to provide an Olympic quality equestrian training facility. To give you a bit of background, the application is submitted by Mr. Sam Wiley of Sam Wiley Dressage. He provides training in dressage and other riding sports to competition horses and their riders. Mr. Wiley had a number of equestrian-related degrees, qualifications, and he's worked with members of Olympic dressage teams around the world, as well as for an Olympic level judge in the UK. And he's now looking to set up his own facility in Bridgend after working freelance as a dressage rider and trainer. So the facility will provide full livery for the horses, and the applicant and an apprentice will take care of the horses in terms of their feeding, their hygiene, exercising, that sort of thing. Like I said earlier, the horses that should be kept at the site will consist of sporting, eventing and competition horses. So the intention is for the site to be mainly used to provide one-to-one riding dressage lessons for horse owners who keep their horses within the livery, and as a result, the facility will not be open to the general public. So as you can see from the photographs here, there is an existing small stable and menage on the site, which have been in situ for approximately 20 years or so. And in terms of the site's planning history, planning permission was previously granted in July 2011 for the construction of 3 new stables in the south of the site, although having undertaken a site visit, that consent doesn't seem to have been implemented, and that would have now lapsed. So there's some aerial shots of the application site here to give you an idea of where we are. It consists of a large field just to the north of Heronston Lane, which is the lane which connects Dunelm and the retail park in the east here to Awenny in the southwest. And the application site then sits between Heronston Lane and the A48 to the north.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ewan. I'm not sure, is everybody seeing the presentation?
No, we haven't seen anything yet.
No.
We haven't seen any photos or anything.
Okay, well, thanks for jumping in there, Jonathan.
I thought it was just me, because
bear with me 2 seconds.
It's on or
better?
That's coming through.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So these are the photographs of the site which I was discussing. So the existing small stable here and the menage. And here are the aerial shots then. So like I said, we've got the application site here. This is Heronston Lane. Awenny is down here to the southwest. And this is Dunelm and the retail park up here. And obviously the A48 running across the top. Vehicular access to the site is gained from Heronston Lane, the southern portion, and then a narrow lane runs along the eastern boundary of the site along here. This is a no-through road, so there's bollards just to the north of the railway line here, restricting vehicular access. Obviously, there is pedestrian access available from the north then. As you can see from this photograph, there is a cluster of residential properties in close proximity to the site. And then the wider shot then shows you that there's agricultural fields, and there's also horses kept on some of the surrounding fields. So there's a menage shown just here, and just the north of the application site here, there's some existing stables where horses are kept. So some photographs. The top is some photographs approaching from the north, the pedestrian route. So this is the railway bridge and the bollards blocking vehicular access. This is a photograph of the stables to the north, the existing stables, and then the lane which links Heronston Lane to the A48. Then, as you can see, there's quite a steep banking here, and this is where the application site is on the right-hand side. So it's quite well shielded from views from that lane, which of course is only really mainly used by pedestrians. The bottom line of photographs then are some photos of the site access from approach from Heronston Lane. As you can see, there's a wide double-gated access to the site. That should provide enough room for vehicles, including kind of larger vehicles like horse boxes, etc., to exit and enter the site then. These photographs are taken from within the site, showing some of the neighbouring properties, which I mentioned earlier on. As you can see, Heronston Hall, which is shown in the top photos, and Heronston Barn Cottage are in closest proximity to the site. So they adjoin the site directly, whereas Heronston House, shown here, is just located on the other side of the access lane. There is quite a strong visual buffer surrounding most of the site, but not so much in this southwestern corner adjacent to Heronston Hall. So a condition has been included to submit details of a boundary treatment at this southwestern corner of the site, just to ensure the kind of privacy and amenity of the residents at Heronston Hall will be protected. Some additional photos then taken from the southern portion of the access lane and on Heronston Lane. The lane is currently used by Hawks boxes, as I mentioned earlier, to serve both the site and the stables to the north. It is envisaged that there will be regular movements to and from the site as a result of development, although due to the type of operation, which is to provide full livery, one-to-one training, as well as on-site facilities for kind of storage of equipment and that sort of thing, I don't envisage these traffic movements to necessarily be of larger vehicles such as horse boxes and trailers on a regular basis. Despite that, there are concerns related to an increasing conflicting vehicle movements when one-to-one lessons start and end. So in order to manage this, a condition requiring a traffic management plan to be submitted has been included on the, will be included on information. And that'll give us kind of a degree of control over when the lessons start and end, so that a time buffer can be incorporated in the schedule, and just reducing the potential for any conflict of vehicles on the lane, people reversing out onto the lane, that sort of thing. Subject to this, as well as a number of other conditions, no concerns were raised by highways or traffic management teams. We've got an overview of the existing and proposed site plans here. As you can see, a horse walker and lunge pen are to be installed alongside the stable building, each of which will measure 16 meters in diameter. You also got the menage then adjacent to it here, and paddocks to the north and the south. The stable block itself will include toilets and a tack room, so that will allow horse owners to store equipment, larger equipment, saddles, bridles, that sort of thing at the site, rather than bring it with them each time they visit in to ride their horses. Just to clarify, a drainage scheme for the site has not yet been agreed. The applicant has suggested the use of a septic tank, but this would only be allowed if they could evidence that a connection to the main sewer isn't feasible. Some 3D imagery and some proposed elevations of the stable. The stable block is American style timber stable, which measures 40 meters in length and 11.5 meters in width. It'll measure 4.5 meters to its ridge and approximately 3 meters in height to its eaves, with a shallow pitched roof and a number of roof lights in it, quite in line with some of the agricultural buildings in the area. The finish of the building hasn't yet been agreed, so a condition's been included for details of this to be submitted, and we would probably look for a darker finish to be agreed, to kind of reduce the visual impact of the stables. This is an extract of a swept path analysis plan which was submitted. This confirms that vehicles up to and including 7.5 ton horse boxes can enter the site, turn and then exit the site in a forwards motion without impacting on kind of the parking provision and things. So we've got 6 car parking spaces and bicycle parking spaces included here as well, which were in line with what was requested by highways. And then just an overview of some of the kind of objections and concerns which were raised by local residents. To summarise, these include that this type of development is inappropriate for the area, which is designated as Green Wedge and obviously is in the countryside. Concerns regarding highways issues, increased congestion on Heronston Lane, the size of vehicles that we use in the site, and insufficient parking on the site. Also concerns surrounding residential amenity, including overlooking, noise, smell, lighting as a result of the development. Concerns around drainage issues. There's existing flooding issues to the highway further along Heronston Lane, and concerns regarding horse welfare then as well. So I won't respond to all of these points individually now. Obviously they are covered in the report. If anyone's got any specific queries they want to discuss further, so we can talk about them then.
Thank you, Eugene. Could I have a move and a second, please?
I'll formally move, Chair.
I
Second,
got a seconder, please.
second,
Thank you very much. I got one speaker. Councillor Clark, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If I could just ask you, are the horses going to be leaving and coming in horse boxes, or are the horses going to be taken out from there onto Heronston Lane? You know, ridden, I mean, are they going to be ridden?
Do you mean will they regularly be ridden on the lane? You know,
yes,
on the lane. I don't believe so. No. You know, these are going to be kind of competition horses and things. So I imagine very valuable horses.
Right.
No, I don't imagine that being the case.
So when they're sort of training them or taking them out, it'll be within that area that we're talking about now.
Yeah, that's my understanding. It'll be within the site. Yeah.
Right, because what I was really concerned about was obviously, you know, if horses were going out onto Heronston Lane, and I know it quite well. You know, I was going to ask about if extra road signs could be, you know, placed. You know, either to slow traffic down or to make them aware there would be horses, or, you know, traffic turning or whatever.
Yeah, well, one of the conditions requested by Highways is that additional signage is put in place, not necessarily to warn of horses, but just additional signage regarding some of the tight bends and just telling people to slow down, essentially.
Okay, that's fab. Thank you.
Councillor Watts, please. Thank you, Nora.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Thomas. It'll be one of the last times I'll be saying that to you.
Thank you, Mr.
Watts. I noticed on the plans, and you mentioned that there were toilets within the stables, but I wondered what sort of basic toilet facilities were available for the horses, in as much as how will their waste from the stables and other waste be cleared away? I would imagine quite heavy lorries or tractor trailers, etc., using that lane as well.
Yeah. So what's going to happen is there'll be muck trailers, which will get filled up with horse manure, and then I think it's on a fortnightly basis. The applicant suggested that there will be a trailer come along, take the waste away, and then it's taken to a facility where it's then it's recycled, essentially. But yeah, on a fortnightly basis, there will be a trailer leaving the site to take muck away.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. I got no more questions. All in favour of the recommendation?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Aye.
Right. Thank you, Eugene. Item 9. Land to west of Stable Lane, Pantagog, Pontycama. Sandra, when you're ready, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This application comprises a linear shaped, sorry, let me start again. Right. This application is for the erection of a detached dwelling on land to the west of Stable Lane in Pantagog. The site comprises a linear shaped parcel of land accessed from New Street in Pantagog and is located on the western side of an existing access road which serves 4 other properties at Stable Lane. The site is set down from Cuckoo Street, the main A4064 route, and is set approximately 10 metres above the River Garrow in the valley bottom to the west. It lies to the south of numbers 10 to 15 New Street and sits on land which slopes steeply from east to west. An OS map extract of the site is shown on page 41 of the agenda packs. The property proposed will be set into the sloping land with a roof pitch set at a right angle to the properties on the eastern side of Stable Lane. It will measure 12 metres in width, 10 metres in depth and 10.1 metres in maximum height to be established from the plateau level below the adjacent access road. So from the street, the property will appear as a single-storey property to match those on the eastern side of the access road. In terms of its finish, the property will have a mixture including stonework, timber cladding and slate-coloured metal roofing with black aluminium windows and doors. The southern and western elevations provide the most window openings, taking advantage of the orientation of the sun and solar gain. As the site is within the local settlement of Pontycama and Blaengarrow, the introduction of a dwelling is acceptable in principle in accord with policies COM3 and PLA1 of the local development plan. The introduction of a dwelling in this location is considered to be appropriate and will not detract from the amenity of the area. The applicant has sought to minimise its visual impact through the design of the split-level structure and has used materials which harmonise with those found on dwellings within the immediate vicinity of the application site. No concerns are raised in respect of overlooking or overshadowing, and the scheme is considered to be acceptable in this regard. As per page 48 of the agenda packs, the site has historically had consent for a dwelling in 2015. The site abuts an earlier development of 4 dwellings which were subject to highway improvements on Cuckoo Street, New Street and along the access road itself known as Stable Lane. Local residents have principally raised concerns relating to land instability and highway safety and seek reassurance that any previous conditions which relate to stability and safety are reimposed. Concern is raised that any construction work will exacerbate the instability of the road and the properties along the whole of Stable Lane. For reference, a photograph showing the topography of the site can be seen on page 43, submitted by a local resident. In terms of land stability and subsidence, the applicant has submitted a geotechnical mining report written by Terra Firma Wales Limited and a site investigation and geotechnical report written by Rhondda Geotechnical Services. The reports have been reviewed by the authority's structural engineer, who has stated that there should not be any issues from ground instability, provided that all recommendations made in the reports are followed. So to ensure the recommendations are followed during the construction phase of development, Condition 2 requires the applicant to undertake the development in accordance with the submitted reports and recommendations. So whilst the concerns of the local residents are noted, it's considered that development is acceptable in this regard, having been assessed by the structural engineer. In terms of highway safety, it is acknowledged that some of the works required by conditions originally imposed on previous planning permissions have been completed, and a review of the latest situation reveals that further works have been completed to provide the improvements to the junction of New Street and Cuckoo Street, as well as the widening of New Street. Accordingly, such conditions are no longer required to be imposed. But notwithstanding this, improvements to the access off New Street and the provision of a turning head are still required. While some of the turning head will be outside the red line boundary of this plot along the eastern side of Stable Lane, it has already been laid out as a flat, hard surface which is suitable for turning. So with the provision of a setback of part of the northeastern boundary of this site via a planning condition, the remainder of the turning head can be provided, and therefore the scheme is considered to be acceptable in highway safety terms, and the condition of the previous consent can be implemented. The conditions now proposed will require the submission of a scheme for a turning head, a scheme for the widening of the access from New Street, and a scheme for the provision of 3 cycle parking stands, together with a scheme for the proposed parking area to be finished in permanent materials. To address the concerns of local residents, all other previous conditions which were imposed on historical consents relating to highway safety matters are considered to have been implemented. After weighing up the merits of the scheme and considering the concerns raised by local residents, it considered on balance that the scheme is acceptable from a highway safety perspective as well as land stability perspective, and represents an appropriate form of development in this residential location, designed to ensure the dwelling will not have a detrimental impact on the residential amenities of neighbouring occupiers or the visual amenities of the wider area, and the application is therefore recommended for approval.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Would have a move on a seconder, please?
I'll formally move, Chair.
Second.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Well, no speakers here, none whatsoever. You all in favour of the recommendation?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sandra. Right. Item 10, appeals, please. Johnson, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair. We've had a number of appeals submitted since last planning committee. We've had one appeal decision, and that is in relation to a proposal for a detached bungalow at land adjacent to 7 Fairways in North Kennelly. And there was concern that this proposal would be constructed in the garden area of the parent property, and in so doing would remove a considerable part of that garden area and leave inadequate amenity space for the future occupiers of the parent property. The planning inspector agreed with the council's case and mentioned the issue of the lack of adequate amenity space, and also referred to the council's supplementary planning guidance, which doesn't actually establish a minimum level of private amenity space. However, this is something that we are currently working on at the moment, and at the future planning committee meeting we will be bringing a proposed SPG on residential amenity space to members. We'll be looking to run a workshop session on it. But it was interesting that the inspector did refer to this point. However, that didn't deter her from siding with the council's case in this instance, and we based the planning decision and the on-balance planning decision on the fact that there was marketable reduced amenity space available to the host property. So that's the only thing I would wish to bring up, Chair, but quite happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Councillor Spanzik, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's in relation to the appeal item 10 of the two from the same property. That there's the enforcement notice for unauthorised felling of TPO trees, 10 of them, which does link to the second part, but that's a separate issue of the appeal. Because what I'd like to understand is, from a legal point of view, what are we doing? Because this is a garden that was totally stripped of its trees, TPO trees, to allow the proposed development, which has gone to appeal following it. Because there's another site in Bracklow where a mature oak tree was felled in a nature reserve on council land 3 years ago, and 3 years now passed, still waiting for the matter to come to court. So I'm asking basically, what is the procedure now on the enforcement notice? Because we need to get the message out to the public. You can't just go around felling protected trees in nature reserves and not get away with it. It needs to be publicised what's going on. I do hope the legal process will be swift in bringing this one to this matter of justice.
Thank you, John. Jonathan, please.
Yeah, in this case, there is an appeal against that enforcement notice. And we have to wait until that appeal is heard before we can proceed with any further action on it. That's the normal procedure. Tree preservation orders are slightly different to other aspects of planning law, in that it is actually a criminal offence to remove a tree that's protected by an order, and that is essentially that can end up in the magistrate's court. But with everything in planning, most things in planning, there are appeal procedures, and we have to let that due process take place before we can actually go further with this. Because if we were to take action now and the decision doesn't go the council's way, then you know that wouldn't be a very particularly good result for us. But I fully take on board the members' comments, and yeah, we are trying to resolve this issue as best we can within the bounds of planning law.
Thank you, Jonathan. John, rather. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chair. I really just wanted to ask the question. I mean, if someone moves into a property and there's trees within their boundary, how do they know that those trees would have a TPO on it? Is it in their deeds? You know, how would they know? It's just a general query, really.
Can I sort of come in, Chair?
Jonathan
knows as well as I do, I imagine, but it's a matter, Councillor, when you're buying a house, if you do your local searches properly, a TPO, a tree preservation order, should be disclosed. So you should know about it before you buy the house. If your solicitor's done his or her job properly.
Right. I just wondered how they would know, but thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Thank you, right. Councillor Spandic, you want to come back or?
Oh, sorry, Chair, I left my hand up. But the point I was trying to make, I think our legal section are struggling to deal with cases because perhaps these, trees may not be the high priority from a legal point of view, but they are a massive high priority from future generations' point of view. So it's an appeal basically for resources for a legal section to, so when appropriate, we can take swift action for people who decide they can just fell trees willy-nilly.
Thank you, Councillor Spandic. Jonathan, finish appeals now, Jonathan, or?
I got nothing further to add.
Right. Item 11, please, training log. Oh, could I have a move in a second after that, please, appeals?
I'll formally move we noted, Chair.
Second.
All in favour? Thank you. Right. Item 11, training log, please.
Thank you again, Chair. You'll notice from the training log that the next training session we'll have is on the 24th of May, and this is the training session for new committee members, and also significant refresher training for existing members of the Planning Committee or Development Control Committee. We do this every time there's an election, so when new members come into the authority, they are given appropriate training to allow them to sit on committee, and members will be aware that you're unable to sit on Development Control Committee unless you've had this important training. Now, usually we do this at officer level when new members come onto the committee, but every election we do a more intensive training session. And in this case, we are using an outside agency to do that, Planning Aid Wales, which is an organisation that specialises in training, amongst other things, in training members of the public and councillors in planning processes. The difference this time to the last major training session we did with new members is that we are still unable to have face-to-face training sessions, and there is another work stream continuing that would hopefully allow that to happen in the future. Unfortunately, we won't be in time to have our member training on the 24th of May, so we will be looking to run this as a virtual event. Now, usually when we do this, it's an all-day event and lunch is usually included. I won't be able to do that in a virtual event, but we'll try to keep it as on topic and as interesting as possible. I know it's a little bit different to what we're normally used to, but we are now into our second year of running virtual committee meetings, so it shouldn't be too much of a departure for most of us. We'll making contact with Planning Aid Wales to ensure that they are fully aware of this and that they organise the agenda to reflect this. Officers will also be available to assist and to answer questions. So it should be a good session, and I would welcome participants, wherever they may be, when the new committee is set up. There will be separate member training for non-DC committee members as part of the ongoing member training sessions. So in other words, we will be running planning training sessions for non-committee members in the future. That's part of the members induction programme. But that's the priority at the moment, is to have the DC committee member training session up and running. Because a couple of days later we do have a development control committee, so it's imperative that we get that session and that members can attend that session before we can move on to a first session of the new planning committee. We've got some other topics as well lined up, and some of them have been on the agenda for a little while. There's our green infrastructure, tree policy, we hopefully to have our conservation team to do some training on that important topic. We'll also be looking to have our rights of way manager to give an update and some background to the public rights of way network. And I mentioned earlier about amenity space in residential gardens, our residential spaces, and we'll be looking to run a workshop on that issue. We have an officer who I believe is on this in committee today, who's Ashita, who's been working very hard on our supplementary planning guidance, updating the guidance, current guidance documents, and looking at the amenity space guidance as well. So the intention is to run a workshop session with the new Development Control Committee, and members can feed into that, and then we can bring a completed policy document then to a future meeting, and then go out to consultation on it, and then bring it back to council for approval. So that will take a little while, but I think it's important to have members' input into the developing our planning policy guidance. As you know, we've operated this for some years, and once the new planning committee is up and running, we will be looking for a volunteer member to lead on this particular item and this particular piece of policy. So there'll be a call going out to that in our first Development Control Committee meeting of the new committee. And also, last but not least, we will be looking at doing some training on conservation areas and this historic environment. Thank you, Chair. Nothing more to add unless there's any questions.
Just to let me a few words. Just to say, it's been an honour to chair the DC meetings. I would like to thank members and officers for the respect that they've shown me in the last 5 years. We hope to see you all back in the chamber, apart from members that are not standing. Many thanks you all. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Lewis, please.
Yeah, may I say something? Basically, I've been on planning for 10 years, and I'd just like to pass on my sincere thanks to all the officers. It's been a pleasure to work with them. Nothing's ever been a problem. They've always been helpful, polite, knowledgeable, give sound advice. I've learned such a lot about planning, or the minefield that is planning. But as I said, just to pass on my sincere thanks to the officers and wish them all the very best for the future. And also all the councillors who are standing again next month, all the very best. And for all of you who are not standing, I hope you enjoy your retirement as much as I'm hoping to enjoy mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillor Watts, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wish to be absolutely associated with David's remarks. They reflect my thoughts exactly. And just to say thank you to Jonathan and his staff in particular. It's been good working with you. Learned a lot, as he said. So, yeah, thank you, David. And thank you, Chair, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. Very kind of you.
All the very best. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Well, take care all. May see you next year, next election, I don't know. But about you, take care. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank
All the
you,
best to everybody.
Bye.
Bye.